So, how you liking the trail?
Awesome! This trip to New Mexico is ticking a lot of boxes for me. A need for an adventure, a chance to reunite with my son, and an opportunity for me to finally visit my Aunt Helen and Uncle Kent in Las Cruces. Plus, I'll finally take the chance of flying with my bike. Could I break it down and build it when I get there? Could I pack it up again to go home? If I can get over this obstacle, the world will open up for me in terms of where I can go bikepacking. I'm packing all of the gear that I need, plus gear for Ian that he needs in a big suitcase. My bike is tucked in a hard-sided case that I borrowed from a friend. It's a lot of stuff, but it's so worth it because I get to see my son, who's flying from Delaware. My aunt and uncle pick us up from El Paso and host us in their home at the foot of the Oregon Mountains. We end up having to replace Ian's clothes because the airline lost his bag. But soon we're building bikes and getting ready to start the route. Here's Ian testing out his new rig.
Suspension feels buttery.
Look at that. Today we'll ride from my aunt and uncle's home directly into Las Cruces, where we'll meet up with the route. The north loop of the Monumental Loop starts by Outdoor Adventures, the bike shop that helped us resupply Ian. From there, we'll ride right through the Main Street Farmers and Crafts Market, along pecan fields, then into the Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument. We'll play on single track near the Doña Ana's before we follow along the Rio Grande River and finally into the Broad Canyon Wilderness. Journey begins. We're leaving Helen's and we're gonna go into town and get some coffee. Even though this is southern New Mexico, it's cold and windy as we get started, with predicted highs in the upper 30s and lows in the 20s overnight. Wind gusts can reach 20 miles per hour today. We've got our work cut out for us. This is amazing. After a brief ride uphill, we descended back into town and entered the trails along the canals called acequias. Acequias are a shared irrigation system that channels the water from the Rio Grande through a series of ditches. Water is delivered to the fields by smaller gravity-fed chutes. Gates control where the water goes and when. Tumbleweed. Is that what you're calling?
Look at that thing.
That's huge. This is the Oregon Mountains. After a few hours, we entered the Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument. According to the Bureau of Land Management, this monument was established to protect significant prehistoric, historic, geologic, and biologic resources of scientific interest. It includes 4 areas: the Oregon Mountains, Desert Peaks, Potrillo Mountains, and Doña Ana Mountains. As we entered the single track, I reflected on how grateful I was to be here with my son Ian. Ian started apprenticing in a bike shop at age 14 and soon after got his first mountain bike. He was a natural, and it didn't take him long to start winning races and become captain of the local mountain bike team. Meanwhile, my husband and I purchased mountain bikes and started joining him. Soon we were bonding over bikes, taking trips to new areas and testing our skills. Riding with Ian has always been a joy. His approach to riding is playful, curious, and encouraging. Many of my favorite moments on the bike are riding with my son. These days, Ian is living on the East Coast with his fiancée. We ride a bit when he comes home to Minnesota for the holidays, but I miss our adventures. So when I mentioned I was taking this bikepacking trip to New Mexico and he offered to come, I was thrilled. 3 days in the desert, riding bikes with my boy. What can beat that? Like a bike? Maybe. Maybe, yeah, without bags. Oh, is it getting a little sketchy up there too? Sweet. Upon exiting the single track, we rode a brief rolling power line trail before exiting to some tarmac that would take us back towards the Rio Grande. Why so much? To harvest pecans, farmers mow and clear all of the sticks and trash from beneath the trees, then have a machine that clamps onto the tree and shakes the nuts to the ground. After that, a harvesting machine picks up the nuts, removes the sticks and leaves, and collects the nuts for transport. Is that what they're doing here? I can only guess. I learned that pecan crops need 2 inches of water per week, spread over the entire orchard area. That explains why the acequias are so integrated with the farms here. A low point of the day was fighting the wind into Fort Selden for tacos, only to find that the restaurant was closed. We had to settle for snacks from the dollar store. We thought about stopping for food in Radium Springs, but the sun was getting low and we wanted to make sure to get to camp before the sunset. Great. Okay, this is just mean. Yeah. A little about our bikes for this trip. I'm riding my full suspension carbon fiber mountain bike, a Canyon Neuron, with 2.3-inch Vittoria Mezcal tires. Ian is riding a steel hardtail mountain bike, a Canfield Nimble 9, with enduro and trail tires, a Vittoria Mazza in the back, and a Garo in the front. We are both riding tubeless tires with fresh sealant to give ourselves a fighting chance against punctures from desert thorns. New to my bike setup is an Old Man Mountain elk horn rack in the front. I wanted it primarily to carry extra water for both Ian and me without damaging my fork. One advantage I've noticed to having the extra weight in the front is that the front of my bike feels planted on steep climbs.
You can see the road. It was so steep. Came from way down there. We still have a little bit of climbing left, but it's not so bad.
I need a shadow later.
Getting close to our campsite for the night.
Oh, this is our campsite for the night. The sun is going down. We're having a makeshift dinner. Okay. Today we'll continue deeper into the Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument backcountry. We'll have a couple of big climbs interspersed with canyon views and sandy washes. Later, we'll have a long descent into the Rio Grande Valley, where we'll follow the Acequias into Hatch, New Mexico, the green chili capital. Our final stretch will start with a long paved climb before we turn off onto a dirt road into the rugged Sierra de las Uvas and begin our search for a place to camp for the night. Last night was chilly, made less comfortable by the fact that my can of Red Bull burst and leaked on part of my sleeping quilt. The sun quickly made the cold temperatures tolerable as we had breakfast and packed up our gear.
We're starting day 2. Leaving our campsite, heading to Hatch today. It's about 9:45, and it is absolutely gorgeous out here.
When I first started bikepacking, I was overwhelmed by this feeling of, I'm exactly where I want to be. I've experienced that on every trip since, even when it's hard, like this climb. I've prepared for this moment, physically and mentally, and now is my time to just enjoy it. I'm exactly where I want to be.
We just came from down there. Oh, it was quite the hike, bike. But look at this view. Hi, cows.
They're following us.
Are you following us? This is awesome. So this part of the route is a little monotonous. Don't you think, Ian?
I like it.
Ian likes it.
Not happy.
We don't have the headwinds we had yesterday, so Right when I said that, wind came up. It's the land of tanks. There's another one. Thank you much. Ha ha ha.
We were delighted to see a large group of sandhill cranes just before hatch while riding along the Acequia. Sandhill cranes migrate from Canada to winter in the Rio Grande Valley. We'd been told to eat at Sparky's when in hatch. Both of us were looking forward to some excellent New Mexican food. So we were a little disappointed that it was mostly a burger joint. Ian was feeling some regret for not getting the green chili pizza slice he saw at the convenience store in town. Still, it felt good to get a hot meal before hitting the road for the final stretch to camp.
Just had a massive climb out of Hatch. And now we're on another paved road for a little bit, heading into the Robledos Mountains. Yeah. Hey, buddy.
The road started getting rockier as we climbed, a preview of what tomorrow would bring. I was grateful for my 130 millimeters of suspension. I admit I was curious about exploring this abandoned structure, but Ian gave me a hard pass. It's a good thing we didn't stop, as the sun was setting rapidly now. We set our sights on a cattle tank as a place to camp for the night. We were delighted when we found it and appreciated the flat spots for our tents near posts where we could lean our bikes. I had convenience store cookies for dinner before climbing into my warm bedding to retreat from the evening chill. Today would be our last day on the trail. We'd start with a rocky, rowdy climb up White Gap Pass, then have an even rockier and rowdier descent off the mountain. We'd meet up with some pavement for a while, but the route description instructs us, turn off the pavement. I suppose you could go straight, but it isn't easier. It's just paved. Boring. Turn right. These instructions would take us into some beautiful desert plains, eventually leading us into some pretty sandy stretches of road before approaching the Picacho Peak recreation area. Our final stretch would be through the historic town of Mesilla before traversing Las Cruces and climbing back to the base of the Organ Mountains. In the morning, I heard a swarm of beating wings as dozens of swallows or swifts dove down to drink out of the bubbling cattle tank. All of the puddles and the cattle trough were iced over in the morning. Our spot was one of the last places for the sunlight to reach. We warmed up quickly, though, as we started to ride. The big climb of the trip, White Gap Pass, was coming up quickly.
Should be approaching a fairly large climb here pretty soon. That's where we stayed last night. Ian's complaining about his keister. And guess what? It's a beautiful day!
Although line choice matters, I found that the trick to riding through these rock fields is to choose an easy gear and just keep pedaling. It's amazing what a full suspension mountain bike can go over, even when it's fully loaded.
Drop something.
Ian impressed me with his ability to climb these steep, technical hills, especially on a loaded bike.
Yeah, like this climb. And he is riding it. Freaking amazing. Look at him go.
You got this.
I really thought this one was unrideable.
So, how you liking the trail?
Awesome!
It is. If I didn't have all this gear on, it'd be a totally fun climb to do. What do you say?
I'm pretty sure I couldn't do it on an empty bike.
We were rewarded with incredible 360-degree views at the top of the pass. Our elation was tempered by what we saw would be a rocky descent.
You good?
Again, Ian just rode down this boulder field here. I was riding for a little while, but I slid out and had my bike fall on top of me. So now I walk it. Some pretty crazy shit. What did you do this morning? Just got off the bumpy mountain. Hopefully the road stays like this for a while, which is quite rideable. Came out from really, really rocky road to this awesome tarmac. And look at the views. There's my boy. Nice. Look at all the mesas. Mesas galore.
These cool Dr. Seuss-like trees are likely yucca alata, or soap tree yucca. Yucca is the state flower of New Mexico. At times the surface could be quite sandy. It switched on and off between packed and sandy for many miles.
Yes, this is pretty. That's where we came from. We're almost to the top. Look at that. Look at my son. That is Pikachu Peak. I hope you can see it.
This part was quite hilarious. We were climbing this road and thinking we would continue up and over those hills in front of us. But then we went a little further and saw that the road turned and became a gorgeous descent.
And then the video ends.
Getting skitty.
At this point of the day, we were eager to make time to avoid riding in the dark. We were craving Mexican food. Ian's knee was hurting a bit. We'd shifted our focus from exploration to destination. It's inevitable, I guess, on any route, but it always makes me a little sad. Still, I'd always have the memories of my 3 days riding in the desert with my son. For his first time bikepacking, he certainly didn't show it. I enjoyed seeing the experience through his eyes.
It don't matter what the distance, it doesn't make a difference, you know. Oh, 'cause I wanna go wherever you go.
After some food, showers, rest, and recovery, we deconstructed our bikes, and I managed to piece my bike back into its box for travel. I learned that yes, I can travel with my bike on a plane to explore faraway places. Now, it's time to plan for the next adventure.
I wanna go